The four basic joints of woodworking. A woodworking joint is defined as how we attach two pieces of wood together. In our class, those pieces are almost always attached with just glue and compression. But the first joint, the butt joint, is basically two pieces of wood that are just butted into each other. That's great, but they're not really going to hold very well. So it needs to be reinforced with a nail or a screw. Just regular yellow wood glue and some compression is not going to do an adequate job. So here's an example of a butt joint. Again, just two pieces of wood that are butted into each other. As I mentioned, just glue and compression is not going to be adequate for this joint. So what we would have to do is use, in this case, a screw to reinforce it. Now that joint is going to stay together much better. The next joint is a dado. Dados are going to be always cut somewhere in the middle of the material. So here's a dado joint. Not cut on the ends, but cut in the middle. And in this case, this is a part of our box project. This dado is going to accept a 1/4 inch piece of plywood, 1/4 inch thick. So that means that the dado is cut a 1/4 inch wide. Now the rabbet joint. Unlike dados, rabbets are always cut on the ends of the material. But there's something that these two joints have in common. At least this is what makes it easy in our class. When you are cutting rabbets and dados, I always want you to try to remember this phrase. Rabbets and dados are always cut half the thickness of the material you're using deep. But let's back up a little. A rabbet joint is always cut at the ends of the material. So here's that same box project piece. Notice the rabbets are cut on the ends to accept the sides. In this case, this piece that has the rabbets cut into it is the front and back of your box project. This side piece coming in would be the short sides of your project. So I mentioned a little bit ago that rabbets and dados are always cut half the thickness of the material using deep. So as you can see with this box project piece that is a 1/2 inch thick, that the rabbet joint in this case is going to be 1/4 deep. Well, what about this example? Now we have a piece of plywood that's 3/4 of an inch thick. Well, we're just going to apply our rule. All rabbets and dados are cut half the thickness of the material you're using deep. Half of 3/4 is 3/8, so any rabbet joint or dado will be 3/8 deep. Last, the miter joint. A miter joint is just two 45-degree angle cuts when coming together, making a 90-degree corner. The most common application for this is a picture frame. Also, we frame our checkerboards using miter joints on the outside edges. So here's an example of our miter joint. This is a picture frame, two 45-degree angle cuts. And how we make those cuts is on a tool called the miter saw. We angle the motor so that it goes to 45 degrees. When we cut those two together, we get our joint. Well, that's it. The four basic joints of woodworking. Here's an example of your final notes page. Thanks for watching. Let's get in the shop and let's get back to building.